Hey, everybody, welcome to a new episode of Walk in Faith. I'm in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, in the beautiful Lady of Mount Carmel. And I'm excited. I'm sitting down with Brian and Kelly Estes to talk about their new documentary, God Bless Bitcoin. It's a pleasure to meet you guys.
Happy to meet you
Yeah,
too.
thanks for having us.
So, like I said off camera, I truly enjoyed the film, God Bless Bitcoin. And it sort of answered a lot of questions that I had, but then it also sort of created all these new questions, right? These new ideas that I wanted to ask you. So when I had the opportunity to sit down with you, I said, I have to ask you questions. And I know there's a lot of people out there that probably like me, a middle-aged man, I have to admit, that struggles with Bitcoin, right? I don't fully understand it. It's not something that my parents sort of passed down to me. We're so used to this traditional currency. And I'm wondering now, at this age, I'm 43, I have to admit, am I too old to sort of get involved? Is my generation too old to get involved in Bitcoin? Should we focus on traditional currency or should we do the switch? What should we do, Brian?
Yeah, well, I'm 56 and I was able to figure it out 10 years ago. So you're not too old. All it does is it takes time to understand it. It's not something that comes easy. And so by making the movie, what I was hoping to do, or we were hoping to do, was take the 10 years of knowledge that I've accumulated, from building Bitcoin companies, from mentoring Bitcoin companies, from, working with people in the industry and condensing that down to 89 minutes. So in 89 minutes, you could save the thousands of hours that I've put in by just watching the movie. And this just gets you started on your journey. But if you watch the movie for the 89 minutes, it should be able to open that door so that you have a very good comprehension of what Bitcoin and the morality of ethics and money are all about.
And also, my parents are in Bitcoin and they are almost 80 and 77. It's not that you go all in at any point in your life, you have a mix, but I think that Bitcoin, especially here in the United States, because it holds its value, is a really good savings account. So if you have some extra money, it's a good place to put it where it will hold its value so that you could call on it years down the road. It wouldn't be something you would want right now. Like it wouldn't be something I would use to save to buy a car, but it would be something I would save for future generations. So I don't think you're ever too old to learn something new. And I'm a teacher, so that's easy for me to say, right?
Just, first of all, like when I started to just think about Bitcoin, like in the film, 21 million Bitcoins. I'm like, okay, so what is a Bitcoin? Is it tangible? Is it an actual coin? Like these are just simple questions that I think, even like I think of my father-in-law who invests money. I'm like, does he fully understand what the Bitcoin is? What is mining? What is a digital wallet? Because, I'm Italian, right? And my generation, my family was always tangible. We needed to hold money. We needed to have the money, whether it's under the bed or the mattress, but something that I can see and hold. So can you just walk me through, and I'll say it's not for me, it's for my father-in-law, Ronnie. What is a Bitcoin? What is it made out of? And why are there only 21 million sort of in circuit?
Yeah, so Bitcoin, and if you drill all the way down to the base layer, what it is just software. All it is software that allows us to move money through the internet without having the permission of a government or bank to move that money. So think about it as like email. When you send an email, you don't need permission from anyone to send an email, to send people data. And when you use what's called voice over internet protocol, VoIP, to make a long distance phone call, you don't need permission to, say what you're going to say to that person. But with our money, we need permission whenever we move the money. And so what Bitcoin is that software that allows us to move money over the internet without permission from a government or from a bank or a PayPal or a Visa or a MasterCard. And so when we built the internet 30 years ago, we built it incorrectly. No one could figure out 30 years ago how to build the software that Bitcoin is today. And so we built the internet on top of the banking and credit card system. And that was a mistake. It wasn't supposed to be built that way. And so when Bitcoin was invented 15 years ago, it was to fix that problem. And now what venture capitalists are doing and what people in my industry are doing, we're rebuilding the internet. We're taking it off of the banking and off of the credit card system, and we're building it the way it was supposed to be built 30 years ago on blockchain technology, so that we have this permissionless way to send money through the internet.
And you said a couple of things that was fascinating, right? So, and you mentioned the institutions, right? And that's something that I've been programmed. I make money, I put in the bank. It's in the bank, but that's giving them so much control. And like you said in the film, like one with the institutions, we see this all the time where they're freezing accounts. So we're sort of at the mercy of these institutions and all these transaction fees. With Bitcoin, do they have the ability to want to sort of revoke your whatever the amount of money is in your wallet? Do they have that same level of control? But then also, is Bitcoin backed the same way, say, the banks are, or they lead us to believe that these institutions are backed?
So Bitcoin's a bearer instrument. So it's like gold. Whoever owns the gold or possesses the gold has the gold, owns the gold. And so Bitcoin's the same way. It's the first digital bearer instrument. And so whoever has possession of what's called the private key owns that Bitcoin. And so that's what makes Bitcoin different than traditional money. When you have dollars and you deposit those into a bank account, you have a unsecured loan to that bank. Because what the bank does with your dollars, it loans out that money. It uses what's called a fractional reserve banking system. So if I put in $100 into my bank account, they could loan out $1,000 based off that $100. So when I go and ask for my $100 back and they've loaned that money out, that money's not there. And that's why you have to have a central bank that backs up your local bank, because if too many people go to the bank and ask for their money, the money's not there. And so the central bank is the one that has to print the money so that you could get your money out. So that's a fractional reserve banking system, which is very different than a Bitcoin system. A Bitcoin system, there is no counterparty to Bitcoin. It's like gold. It's, whoever owns the Bitcoin has the private key to the Bitcoin, owns that Bitcoin, and whoever has possession of the gold owns that gold. There's no counterparty there.
And the other thing that you brought up is that what's backing our money, what is backing our current dollar. So few people understand that in 1971, President Nixon took the United States dollar off of the gold standard, which means we don't have any hard asset like gold backing our money. There's nothing, which is why they can print as much of it as they want. There's no limited supply anymore. There's nothing stopping the money printer. And so people get, confused and feel very confident in our dollar, but really there's nothing backing it except the US government saying it's secure.
I agree. And even like you see in the past, few years, how money has such a devalued, right? And we constantly hear inflation, and there's arguments on both sides if we're actually going through a recession or an inflation, and none of us really know. But I mean, I know, and I use this example. In 2017, we purchased a house, and at that time, the money that we had in the bank was worth what it was worth. And now, when we noticed the interest rates were really skyrocketing, my wife and I made a decision to pay off the mortgage, because I looked at it in the sense that the money that was in the bank in 2017 still had the same value. Because if I was to take that money in the bank and reinvest it into something now, the value of that money has really depreciated a lot. And I see that within the past few years, how money is really has such a devalue. But when we hear inflation and we know just the basics of it, can you explain what inflation is and how that affects just the average person?
Right. So to put that simply, what you were talking about, just 6 years ago, if you had $1,000 in your savings account, today you could only buy $520 worth of goods and services with that $1,000. That is what inflation looks like. That is what the printing of money does to the value of your dollar. And so I think people don't understand that that's really what causes inflation is too many dollars are in circulation, and it is diluting your purchasing power every time another one gets put into circulation.
It's no different than in the Bible, it says diluting the wine with water. We have Father Sirico in the movie talking about that, how, there's several passages in the Bible that says, that's stealing, it's theft. And the government does that all the time. When they print more money, the government's printed 48% more dollars in the last 6 years than were in existence before that. And so that money printing has diluted your purchasing power. So if you spent, an hour earning $20 6 years ago, that $20 only buys like $11 worth of goods and services today. Well, what happened to my other $9? Well, it got diluted. And so that's not, it's morally, ethically not right to do that. I mean, it's theft in my opinion.
And the worst part is people don't understand that. It's sneaky, right? It's taking from us without us realizing it.
No, you're right. And then it creates this division between one another, right? And
Right.
it's interesting too, so let's say there's someone out there that's like, you know what, whether I'm retired or not, and we talk about printing money, like it doesn't affect me. But you made such a great point when you talk about war, right? And how they can continuously print money in order to fund wars. And I don't want to give away too much of the documentary, but you make a great argument over that. And the thing that I think really struck me is, I mean, you make a lot of bold statements when it comes to how Bitcoin can really change the world. And I've done research and I wrote papers on just women's rights in certain countries, right? And when you had that little snippet of it and you see these people that really are controlled, right? I don't want to give away too much, but controlled in certain situations and cultures. And this gives them the ability to have freedom, which is something we lack, and to connect and unite. And I'm like, wait, this really does connect people. It puts everyone on the same sort of playing field, opposed to like, I live in this country and I don't have that opportunity. Because when you speak about sort of biblical principles, and I always think about God gives us this ability or these gifts to really succeed, right? Whatever that means. But when I think about people that are in certain countries or third world countries or in war zones, I'm like, how are they able to access those promises? But with Bitcoin, they can, right? Because they're on that same playing field. It's not us versus you anymore. So tell me, I spoke a lot, but tell me a little bit about that and within the film, some of these points.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite parts in that film is the woman that you're talking about. And I don't mind giving a little bit away. I won't tell all of it. But her name is Roya Maboob, and she has been working in Afghanistan. And I think that people in the United States understand Afghanistan pretty well, and we can relate to that because of our involvement over there after 9/11. But she's been working with young girls to teach them coding so that they have a skill set where they can support themselves and their families. The problem was, how do we pay these girls? And in their culture, oftentimes they needed the permission of a father, a brother, or a husband to accept payment. Well, Bitcoin allows those women to earn the money that they have, or to keep the money that they have earned. And so I think that's really important when you look at it as a human rights issue. And then we have several other people in there, but I think the United States can really understand, and your listeners understand what happens in Afghanistan because we've been watching it play out in front of us.
Yeah, and then you also mentioned the endless wars that we've been in for, over 20 years. And what funds those wars are the money printer. When the government needs money to fund a war, they just print the money to do that. And that's not the way it used to be. The way it used to be was that a government would use its own treasury, use its own gold to fund the war. And if it ran out of gold, it would go and borrow money through war bonds from its citizens to fund the war. And if the citizens didn't want to loan the government money, then the war ended. Or when they ran out of gold, the war ended. But now the governments just keep printing more and more money, and so the wars never end. And so in the Bible, it says that, the Lord says, stop the expropriation of my people to conduct violence and destruction. And that's what the governments are doing. They're taking our money to conduct violence and destruction. And it says specifically in Ezekiel not to do that.
And I agree. I think if we had that power, the ability to decide, like whichever war you want to discuss, I think more people would be in favor of not going to war, because having the ability to continuously print and invest in these wars that usually don't end the way that they should. I mean, I like you. I mean, I want to see peace. I want to see union. I'm all about love. I want us to be connected. And if Bitcoin is the answer, it seems like I can't say 100% because I don't know a lot about it, but just reading and doing the research and listening to and seeing how it sort of connects us all, and it gives everyone this opportunity and this sort of advantage to actually, make a life for themselves. And like back to your point about the woman, like a lot of these, like we've interviewed a lot of women from say Iran or those countries, Iraq, and they want to escape and they can't. They have no resources, no assets, no money. There is no way that they can escape. And a lot of them are coming to Christianity, and there's an influx of them. And when I've spoken to a few of them, and it's just impossible for them because they're controlled and they have no resources at all. And it seems like Bitcoin would give them that opportunity to make money and to be able to escape certain situations that are not in favor of their life or their religion.
No, we agree.
Well, and if you look at Islam, it doesn't say that women are not to earn money. We have a quote in the movie that says, to women is given what they have earned and that they should keep it. In Islam, women are valued. It's just the interpretation that has given them so much trouble.
So now, okay, we spoke a little bit about the faith, and how did this come about in the sense of where you were able to connect religion and different religions into Bitcoin? Because that, when I see the passages throughout, but I was interested. I'm like, how do we connect this? Like, how did that personally for you, Brian? Like, where did you come up with this idea to say, like, God bless Bitcoin? Because there's a lot of negative chatter out there. We know about Bitcoin, and there's always gonna be positive and negative. But where did this come from in your spirit?
Yeah, well, Kelly came up with the name God Bless Bitcoin, but where the idea came from was I read a book 4 years ago called Thank God for Bitcoin, which is the Christian view of money, ethics, morality, and Bitcoin. And so after I read the book, I just got curious. I was like, well, what do the other religions say? And so I looked into, the other religions, Jewish, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist religions, and just to see what they talk about ethics and money and morality. And that's kind of, I thought I would just satisfy my curiosity and that would be it. But then I had this like internal voice like saying, I need to tell the story, like write a book, make a movie, tell the story. And I've never written a book or made a movie, and I'm a terrible storyteller. And so I just kind of ignored it. And then the voice kept getting louder and louder and louder. And finally I went to Kelly. And so she has her master's degree in writing. She's a teacher. And I asked her for help. I was like, can you help pull this story out of me? And we could, make something of this and tell the story. And so we hired an Emmy nominated filmmaker to help us make the movie. And Kelly pulled the story out. And so what the movie is, it's exactly what was in my head and in my heart. And now it's on film. And so, and now I have some peace in my life because that voice, it shut that voice up.
Well, the voice is going to come back in a different way. I mean,
Well, I hope not. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it was pretty loud.
The voice is persistent.
Yeah.
there'll be another project that'll come. I mean, and you had such amazing people in the film, like Mark Cuban. I mean, I'm watching this going, it wasn't like just, the average person in this documentary. I mean, you had some real, established names that actually gave it a lot of credibility. Like I'm watching this going, wow, this is, I've done a lot of documentaries, and to have that sort of level of talent in your film, especially if this is your first documentary, I mean, I commend you for that because it's an important topic to talk about, especially when you talk about Bitcoin. But the minute you throw religion in, sometimes people are a little bit, not as interested to participate. But what an amazing film. And the way you break it down, like when the host comes back on, and because there was like certain things I didn't know, and then she comes back and explains it sort of in layman terms. And I'm like, oh, now I get it. The only thing too, there's a couple of words that I gotta go back and do research on because they meant something different. Was it hard money or something sound money? And I'm like, that's different from what it was back then. But fascinating film. And when I'm watching it and you talk about the Bible, I was thinking so much about the passage in Matthew when Jesus flips the tables, right? I mean, that's clear evidence that he had issues with people that were taking advantage of its citizens. You have that. I mean, passages that I was thinking about and reflecting on as I'm watching and going, you know what? I do think that God would bless or is blessing this and wants to see us all come together. And if it's Bitcoin, then who's to say, right?
Right. And that's what I meant. A lot of people are wondering what I'm saying in that title. Are you saying God blesses Bitcoin? It's not what, I mean, I don't even pretend to guess what God wants, right? I know I'm small. But it is a prayer, God, if Bitcoin is a form of money that allows us to live together and have the abundance that you want for all of your people, not just a few of your people, please bless it. Please help us figure out how to get back to interacting with each other and valuing each other the way that you intended. And that's what the title means. So yes, I 100% agree with you.
So let's say, you know, we see where we are in terms of society, culture, division. It's divided. We're divided. I mean, I think everyone would agree. So let's say the government comes along and stops Bitcoin, or something changes, or Bitcoin doesn't succeed for whatever reason. Where do you see the country? Where do you see the future if, you know, Bitcoin is not able to succeed within society?
I mean, I'm hopeful in that. I think if you watch society, and I'm speaking strictly of America because I don't have experience in other countries, but if you're talking just America, and the pendulum swings constantly, right? We go one extreme, people can't stand it anymore, and then we vote it back and we all come back. So I'm hoping that we will be able to find a way back to the middle again instead of being here on each high point. If we could come somewhere in the middle, I don't think that you and I and Brian are the only ones who are tired of the division. I think a lot of Americans are. So maybe just, people will be able to find their way back to the middle, Bitcoin or no Bitcoin. I just think that Bitcoin solves a big problem that divides us, which is money. So I'm hopeful that nothing stops it.
I love that. And I think you're right. I think just using Bitcoin as a way of connecting people, just to have a conversation. Same way I use boxing. Boxing is not, I'm not a fan of boxing, but it was a way of just connecting people from different religions to show something that they shared in common. And you're right. I mean, like I said, that just that scene, I think it's in Africa, and it's just, I never thought about the people in Africa, in those third world countries, and how, you know, corrupt the system is, or the currency has no real value. And then you mentioned in the film too, like I'm thinking about, I watch a lot of World War II movies, a lot of films. And if I was asked to carry all of my belongings in a suitcase, right? And let's say I had money in the house, I wouldn't be able to take anything with me. But with Bitcoin, it's a digital wallet, or it's memorizing the 21 or 20 something characters, or words. Like it's during Ukraine. I mean, that's a good example. So I think you're onto something. But Brian, I don't think that this is going to be the only film you create, because
No, this is the
Oh
only,
no,
yeah,
we are one and
we're one and done.
I will make a wager here. Listen, I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of films, and Corby could attest to that. I've watched a lot. I'm telling you, this is some real high quality documentary with a great thesis question I mean, I'm in a rabbit hole now. Now I want to find out more about it. And just one last question, because I talk a lot. The other day I was approached. What is a token? This is a new thing. I see celebrities are diving into. What are these tokens? Is this the same as Bitcoin? Is this something different? What is a token?
Okay, so Bitcoin is a token. It's a digital token. It was the first one. Bitcoin was the first blockchain, but there are 7,000 plus other blockchains out there. And this is just my opinion, but my opinion, Bitcoin is the only true use case for blockchain technology today. There may be other use cases in the future, but right now, Bitcoin constitutes 58% of the value of all blockchains, and it's like 96% of the value of what are called proof of work blockchains. And so Bitcoin's the dominant blockchain that's out there. So all the other ones are experiments that I would be very careful about allocating resources to, and just stick with the standard. And the standard is Bitcoin.
You answered my question. I was going to invest in this, and now I'm not. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Kelly, so much.
Thank you.
It's honestly fascinating film. Now, how can people find out more about it? I know the film is available for free. If they watch this episode, they probably, you know, have heard a lot about the film because we talked about it for 40 minutes. But what is the website, or is there a social media handle? How can people find out more about the film?
Yeah, I think it's easy. You can go to our website, godblessbitcoin.com, and there is a link not only to watch the film for free, but you can download it as well. Our goal is to get 1 billion views. So anybody you want to share it with, if you like it and believe in its message, please, please, please help us spread the word that Bitcoin is hope. You can also go to YouTube and just type in God Bless Bitcoin, and it'll take you to our link there as well.
Yeah, and then our social media handles are God Bless BTC Film, and it's on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. So you can find the film there too.
Yeah, I already shared it this morning with Donald Trump's tenor, who's a good friend of mine. I sent it to him today on the way in. We talk almost every day, and I was asking him questions, and I said, you got to see this documentary. So I will continue to share it, and
Thank
you guys need. And I'm looking forward to just seeing the comments and when people have their own opinion about how God would feel about it or Bitcoin in general, because my generation is still very tangible. I think my mother still has her money, in the mattress underneath the bed. So, guys, thank you so much. And I hope everyone enjoyed today's episode of Walk in Faith. Always remember, you have the ability to inspire and evangelize your words and actions. God bless you.